pitmaster, Big Bob Gibson.
Well, I'm going to say co-pitmaster of Big Bob Gibson's barbecue team. They finished in reserve this past weekend at Jack Daniels. It's Ken Hess joining me here on the show. I know him as Big Hoss. You take reserve this weekend. Ken, how did the cook go for you guys?
It went really well. It was a little cold at night. It got down about 35, 36 degrees, so it was pretty cold. But our Jed Master cookers held their temperature. We did get up a little bit more often just to make sure and guarantee that the pits were holding their temps.
Now,
in terms of how we felt about the product, we felt we turned in the best ribs, according to Don McLemore, who's one of our owners, that he feels we've ever turned in competition. We did end up taking third place with those this weekend, and we missed first by a point. And then in terms of our chicken and brisket and pork, we feel like we have a very solid 4 categories at the moment in our cooking careers.
All right, so for the teams or for the people listening tonight, we got a packed house for the live show. How did Big Bob Gibson's qualify for Jack Daniels this year?
We won a little contest called Memphis in May back in May.
Yeah, I never heard of it. I heard that's going to be an up-and-coming competition one of these days. All right, so you win Memphis in May to get down to the Jack. Have you guys been down to, or Big Bob's been down to Jack Daniels before?
We have. We've been here about 5 times now over the history. And this was our 7th trip. Oh, no, this was our 7th trip. I apologize. This was our 7th cook at Jack Daniels.
All right, 7 times down. What's it like? I mean, how many times have you been there personally, Ken?
This was actually my first time to travel with the team and be at for Big Bob Gibson's and be at the Jack Daniels.
All right, so you're part of a well-known team. You've done very well this year. But as someone who is just kind of getting down there for the first time and seeing all the majesty and the mystique that is associated with this competition, what are some of your personal thoughts as you were kind of taking it in for the first time? What'd you like? Anything you didn't like?
It was an awesomely organized and well-run contest. It was amazing how much it had a very small, very close-knit feel to it, whereas you're thinking, I'm at the Jack Daniels, this is going to be like crazy, like the American Royal or Memphis have 300 teams or 500 teams. There's only 85 teams out there. So it's a very, home feel to the whole contest, which I really enjoyed.
Is there enough stuff going on all the time where if you're not executing a game plan or prepared to do what you've come down to do that you could easily get distracted and put yourself behind at some point?
Oh, you definitely could. I mean, you could see that there's 19 to 20 international teams that they're doing their, traditional meals from their countries. They're dressed in their traditional outfits from their countries. There's a lot of extracurricular activities for what the distillery produces, per se. And, there's a whole town square, which is absolutely beautiful and very, like you could go buy antiques. There was over 250 different craft vendors and other things there that, if you weren't staying still at your site, you could definitely get lost. I think they had 25,000 people showed up to this little holler.
That's a little bit. That's a little bit of people,
yeah.
I think, yeah.
I think the population's only 500 people during the regular time of the year.
So it explodes a little bit come Jack Daniels barbecue time. Does Big Bob Gibson's area get a little bit more crowd traffic because of Chris and the name associated with the company?
We definitely, you have a lot of people who come by with books. Jack Daniels is one of the few contests where you're actually allowed to sell your product. We have a very big family that comes up to support us, and a lot of them were, selling sauces, selling books, selling T-shirts, selling hats. And so, we've got a lot of people that stop by and want to see Chris, get the book signed. But, when it's crunch time, our family is very good about, saying, Chris is busy. If he'll come back after turn-ins, you'll be able to visit with him and take pictures with him. So it does get things a little harder to get sometimes from point A to point B for, if Chris is walking because, he wants to see all the fans that love the book and love our company. So it does make sometimes getting to, turn-in times, well, not necessarily turn time for food, but to register for the event, different things like that. It kind of makes it harder to travel a little bit.
Ken Hess from Big Bob Gibson's joining us here, talking about the Reserve Grand Championship win this past weekend. So, if we look at the turn-ins, Ken, you addressed them a little bit ago, just cursory, but we look a little bit more in depth. Chicken, obviously, everybody is talking about how you have to add that white chicken entry in, and you get 27th overall in chicken. So, not necessarily bad, not huge score, but definitely well respected given the teams that were there. What do you use for the white portion of the chicken, and how happy were you with the chicken turn-in?
We were really happy. We used chicken breasts, and we used our product here from the restaurant, broke them down, trimmed them up, and then smoked them. But it added another element to our cook that now you have to perfectly nail cooking that chicken breast. Because if you don't, it won't be moist. It won't be tender, and it'll be dry and overcooked. So it added, a few more steps into what we had to watch and take care to execute on. So made it a little bit tighter. Also, the turn-in times are all a half an hour behind traditional KCBS times. So it kind of, you're sitting there going, all right, it's 11. This should be there. This should be there. But you're like, oh, no, but my first turn-in is until 12:30. So, it throws you off in terms of your day-to-day KCBS. I couldn't imagine people that do 40 KCBS contests a week having to be off in a half hour,
It's got to be a little weird.
Yeah.
Ribs is next. You get a third-place call in ribs, so only two people better than you, and as you said, a point separates you from the top. Don McLemore, obviously one of the most trusted palates probably in the country when it comes to barbecue, saying that those were some of the best rib turn-ins. What do you think put them over the top this time?
I think, again, attention to detail. We've had some very solid run-ins with our ribs this year. We went up to a Louisville for a private cook-off against some teams, 6 teams, and won that. So we're very confident right now with our ribs, the recipes we've come up with, the execution, and I think we were on top of our game. We focused on those details, and that's what really brought it in. And then, also selection of a great product. We select from our ribs from the restaurant. We probably went through, 5 or 6 boxes to get the ones we needed.
Ken Hess joining us here on the show. Pork next, 26 overall, so one better than the chicken. But you don't hear your name called, so do you get concerned? Is it all just part of the process?
Well, one thing that Chris did mention to me before we went up is look, there's a lot of celebrity judges that aren't certified that, you're going to see scores you've never seen in our score sheets before. And so I was prepared for, we might not get a call, might not hear our name in some of our strongest categories, which, pork is
right.
What Big Bob Gibson's bread and butter is made on. So we were definitely hoping to get a call on pork, but it just wasn't in the cards.
Yeah. Last category, brisket, 19th overall. So, again, not hearing your name called, but how did the brisket turn out for you guys?
I think the brisket was just as exceptional as the second-place brisket we had in the Invitational. It was there. The points were there. The flats were there, and it was a beautiful box. And, we were not ashamed of any of the products we turned in. We felt like we had a chance going to awards to win.
All right.
And take it all home.
You go through awards, you get your call in ribs, but no other calls that you're hearing. And I just had Bill Gillespie on talking about, what it's like to hear when they're starting to call overall. You only heard your name called once. I don't know how well you're keeping track of all the other teams and kind of where they're placing. So as names start to tick off, you're getting higher and higher up in prize money and reserve and overall champion. And when you get up to that 5th place, that 4th place, you haven't heard your name called yet. Do you think that you've tanked off the categories a little farther than you might have hoped, or is there always a shot for winning for you guys?
Well, one thing is that the Kingsford Points Chase was this weekend also. It was actually the culmination of all the Points Chase was ending at the Jack Daniels, and earlier in the contest it would have been announced that we were the highest points team for the Kingsford Points Chase. So we won $500 from Kingsford earlier in the awards. So as it started going up past 5th, you're starting to look at each other like, hey, we're the number 1 Kingsford Points Chase team for this weekend. There's a chance we've won this thing. And then you get the 3rd place is announced. And I remember looking back at Chris, I was like, you think we did this? He's like, man, I don't know. And so Then they announced us for the Reserve Grand Champion, and we were like, oh, we thought we had it. We thought we had done, one of the harder things of winning the Jack Daniels and Memphis in May in the same year.
So what is it like? I mean, obviously everybody wants to win. I would assume 99.9% of teams would be ecstatic getting Reserve Grand Champion. Is it a little, are you put off a little bit that you didn't take overall since you're that close?
I mean, we came to win, and then there's definitely disappointment that we didn't. But to have the year we've had and get Reserve Grand Champion, but then when you get your score sheets and you're .57 away from winning, I mean, the Smoke and Hog guys came to congratulate us. They were, a great group of guys, and they were, like, so excited. And they were like, we can't believe it was that close because, most of the big contests are determined by lots and points. Mm-hmm. And, Chris and I were talking earlier today, if over the past year since Big Bob Gibson has been competing, if you would give us 1 point and let us divide it how we wanted, we would take the .7 for this Jack Daniels. We lost the American Royal the Lotta Bowl by 1/1000th of a point, and we lost Memphis and May once by .25 points.
Wow.
So you're talking about 1 point, we could be 3 world champions higher.
It's a fickle word, that barbecue, right?
Yeah, and we strive. I mean, we go out to win. We work over the winter times trying to, see what we've done wrong, look at our score sheets over the year, analyze, is it taste, is it tenderness, what can we change? And we work really hard to make sure that the product we're putting out is the number one.
Ken Hess joining us here on the show, breaking down Jack Daniels. Ken, it has been a very good year for you guys. Big Bob's isn't necessarily known for really hitting the trail like some of the other teams on KCBS and FBA, IBCA circuits. You won Memphis in May earlier this year, like we talked about. You take reserve this past weekend at the Jack. Do you and Chris ever find yourselves maybe a little unfulfilled when it comes to the amount of competitions that you do during the course of the year?
I think we would like to get out more than we do, but we do so much traveling with Kingsford and like South Beach Food and Wine Festival. We've done some large catering events for NASCAR. We do so much stuff now that, I mean, I right now don't have a family, but Chris has got 3 children, and Don and Chris, Don's got his grandchildren. They're involved in athletics, and I think being with the family and being with the kids doing their activities is more important than going out every weekend. And, we always talk about, man, we wish we could just jump down the road for a quick one. But, I think at the end of the day, being with your family is what's the most important. And when we started competing, the family was always able to come. So now that the children have gotten older, that's more, I think, the focus is that keeping the family traditions and values intact aren't always involved with barbecue every weekend.
Absolutely. Ken Hess joining us here on the show. All right, last question before I let you go, Ken. Probably toughest question of the night. Put you on one side with whatever smoker you want, Chris Lilly on another side with any smoker that he wants. Who's coming out on top of this barbecue showdown?
I don't think there's even a chance there. We work so well together that, there are things that he can come up with an idea and I can spin it a different way, and I'm going to say we're pretty evenly matched on that one.
No, I'm not going to take that answer.
Me, though.
I'm not going to take that answer. Give me an answer.
He'll beat me.
Oh, all right. I'll take it. Ken Hess is a co-pitmaster, Big Bob Gibson's. They just took reserve grand champion this past weekend. It's the 23rd Jack Daniels. And, of course, they won Memphis in May earlier this year. Ken, always appreciate you making time for the show. Thanks for coming on tonight.
Well, I really appreciate it. Thanks for having us on.
All right, take care. There he is. Ken Hess, great guy, having a great year. Again, this is a team that is not known for cooking a lot of events. Very busy doing a lot of other stuff within the industry.